Welcome to Beyond Sport with Fiona Stewart. In this podcast, I chat to athletes, coaches, and industry professionals about their sporting journey and the lessons they've learnt along the way. Guests range from Olympians to the everyday lover of sport, but the message stays the same. There is so much more to sport than what meets the eye. Make sure you hit subscribe on Apple Podcasts or follow on Spotify so you don't miss the release of each new episode. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at Beyond Sport with Fiona Stewart. I'd love to hear from you. Before introducing this week's guest, I just wanted to jump in and let you know that last week's guest, Cooke, has her new book releasing this week. The Force Within, From Police Officer to Paralympian, Carol takes readers on the journey of what she learnt from the police force and how that transferred into her life as a Paralympic gold medalist. Let's hear from Carol about her new book.
I started in April during the first lockdown, and I finished it August 25th, the day the games were supposed to start. And I had a publisher by November 13th. Friday the 13th, it'll always be a really good day for me. Because I got an email back from a publisher saying, yeah, we want to publish it. So it comes out August 1st in all good bookstores near you. From police officer to Paralympian. So it's basically just lessons that I learned through policing, my policing career, but also lessons because my grandfather, my father, and my mother were all police officers. And so it's kind of it's biographical. It's the history of my family, basically, in policing and where they came from and how, you know, my mom was like the 14th woman ever hired on the Toronto Police Force. So it was, you know, she was like kind of groundbreaking, you know, at the beginning. And they certainly didn't do what I did when I joined. Yeah, so just lessons that I took from them all along the way. So, and then how those lessons got me through, you know, moving across the ocean and my diagnosis and just where I've ended up, I guess.
If you enjoyed listening to her episodes, I highly recommend getting this book. You can find a link to purchase in the show notes. This week's guest is Maria Alexiadis, an Australian karate competitor who competes on the international stage. I had a chat with Maria while she was in hotel quarantine after returning from the Olympic qualifiers in Paris. Maria not only competes, but also coaches and is on the board of Karate Victoria, hoping to make a positive impact on her sport. In this episode, you'll hear Maria's journey and the passion and love that she has for this sport. Part 2 will be released next week. Let's get into it. Can you tell us a little bit about your sport and how you got into it?
Okay, so sport is karate, of course. Actually, I was never meant to start karate. We used to watch a lot of martial arts movies with Dad, my sister and my brother. And my brother wanted to be like Bruce Lee. So my dad, me, my sister and my brother, along with my dad, took to sign up my brother at the local karate school. And the instructor there turned around to my sister and I and said, why don't you two give it a go as well? We kind of looked at each other and we were about 12 years old. I was 12, my sister was 11. And we kind of looked at each other and looked at the class. The class was full of boys. Now, at that age, a girl wants to be with other girls. And I think the instructor heard us say that. And he's like, oh, there are a lot more girls. They'll be here the next class. Just give it a go. And if you don't like it, you don't have to do it. And so, we went along to the next class. There weren't that more girls. There were only 2 more girls in that class. But we became good friends. Yeah, the rest is history. I'm kind of a bit of a perfectionist, so I kind of like once I start something, I need to finish it to the end. Didn't realize there was no end to karate. And so that's how I kind of began in karate. And it was nothing to do with sport karate. I didn't even realize that there was this other aspect of karate, this competition side. It was just basically karate, and you've got your grading system, and you know everybody wants to get to their black belt, and that's all I knew about karate for years, really.
Oh, wow. And you said that there really is no end to karate, and we've had a few other guests on that have done karate. So once you've got your black belt, which is what, you know, anyone would kind of think outside of the world of karate is the pinnacle, you can go further into, is it the Dan system?
Yeah, there's the Dan grading system. So yeah, you get your black belt, which is your first Dan, and then you've got your next black belt, second Dan, third, and it goes right up. To continue it any further than black belt, I suppose there's not a lot of people that do that. Yeah, it just all depends on how committed you are. And, some people just want to achieve that black belt and then say, I've done it and that's enough. And other people just keep going. I think once I got to my black belt, I didn't really want to even grade for my black belt. I actually enjoyed being brown belt. I had just started competing around that time. And I remember back then, and I was really enjoying competition. And back then, if you were a brown belt, you could also compete in the black belt divisions. So I was enjoying that. I was having a heap of competition because I just loved competing so much. So I never really wanted to grade to black belt, and I was kind of forced to grade. Yeah, and then after that, I honestly did not care about the grading system.
Mm-hmm.
There's hierarchy in karate. There's a hierarchy everywhere, and I'm not comfortable with hierarchy. Graded, and I graded to my fourth Dan, and I haven't graded for like 10 years or something or longer.
Gosh, fourth Dan's amazing though. Like, what an achievement. Like, that's your black belt times by 4 pretty much.
Yeah. No, it's great. And like, I really commend those people who just keep grading and keeping it for that long. I think to be committed to anything for that long is crazy, and you've got to really, really love something. So, it is an achievement. Yeah, but it's more a personal thing than anything else. I think once you get to your black belt and going through all that, it's more, and karate is one of those things where you're not being tested against what anybody else can do or not do. It's more a personal development thing and how much you've improved or your learnings from it, rather than being compared to anybody else. So
yeah, I really like that. And you've been doing it for over 30 years. So was there a moment that you were like, yes, this is for me, this is where I belong?
I was thinking about this question, and I don't know that there was anything like, the thing that kept me going was that I kept learning something, and I was continually being challenged. And I think the other thing that kept me going is, when something hadn't been done before, or somebody told me I couldn't do something, or somebody told me that, it's not good enough. Well, I was a lot more of a perfectionist back then. So if somebody told me you need to be able to do it stronger, faster, better, or whatever, I just had to keep going until I got it, and not realizing that there was, what is stronger, what is better, what is faster. They're all kind of very subjective. Yeah, but I guess it's being a traditional martial art. I think that's just the way it was taught. Like, if I tell you it's not fast enough or strong enough, or you're just going to get better and better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I only realised that much later in life, though. So I kept trying to attain this unattainable. I think that's what kind of kept me going. Yeah.
Type A, and the goalpost kept, as you would get closer, it kept pushing forward because, you could always just get better and better. Yeah.
That's right. I kind of reached my black belt, and I did all that, and I did the traditional karate. And then, I discovered competition karate, and it was like, oh, there's this whole new world that's opened up to me. And I really enjoyed, there are two parts to karate, to competition karate. There's the kata and the kumite. The kata is the forms, like prearranged sets of moves, like a dance almost, but they're karate moves. They run for 1 or 2 minutes long, these katas. And then there's kumite, the sparring. And I really enjoyed, I trained a lot of kata growing up. That's the more traditional sort of side to it. But I really enjoyed competing in sparring and kumite. And I discovered sort of competition karate, and I just wanted to be the best. I wanted to get onto that state team. I wanted to get onto the national team. I wanted to go and compete. And I think that just kept me going. And then, little things that happened to me along the way, good and bad, mostly the little bad things that happened, I was like, oh, I want to get over that, or, you know, and in the end it was like, well, I don't want other people to go through that. So, you know, maybe if I stay here, there's something I can do to change that aspect of my sport. So.
Yeah. Oh, I really like that. And my next question is about significant milestones. So that's where you can take us through some of those. And it's led you to you're on the board of Karate Victoria. That's right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I was an athlete. I think I may have gotten onto the state team. I was probably a really late developer in terms of when I started competing. A lot of kids start competing at 8 or 9 years of age. I didn't start competing till my late teens, early 20s. Oh, I can't even remember when I made my first state team, but it was probably in 96 or something, or 97. I know that I made my first national team in 1999. So I've been on the national team for a long time. So that was like a huge milestone because, you know, I remember it was the Women's World Cup in Japan, and I'd never realized how many people did karate, and that there was this whole world of people representing their country in a sport. So that was exciting. I continued to compete, and, you know, you have your good years and you have your bad years. And I think a turning point for me was, well, there are a couple of things that happened. Maybe I'll talk about the good and bad. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, good and bad.
So in 2000, the following year, I think I won nationals again that year, represented Australia again that year. But I started being bullied by a coach that year. And that was the start of a 10-year-long battle with being bullied by this particular individual. So that, and I think that had a really huge impact on how I got through it and where I am today, and why I'm doing what I'm doing today. And it kind of took me 10 years to get rid of this individual. And it wasn't, you know, there were a lot of things that this individual did, and, you know, and was in a position of power, I suppose. And I suppose, you know, male-dominated sports, people are allowed to get away with things, and things like that had never been dealt with before. And then there was this young girl who was kind of bringing all these things up. So that was a big thing for me that year. And then in 2008 was another big year in terms of, I didn't make world championships that year, even though I had the better record than the athlete that did end up going. Again, it was this same coach that had this huge impact on that decision. And it had nothing to do with results or, you know, how good I was or wasn't. And I decided that I was going to quit karate, and I only quit for 3 months. I tried to look for something else that would give me the same sort of, I don't know, high or buzz. And I didn't. And then I came back the following year and I started competing. And that year, actually at the end of 2008, an old coach had approached me to become a state coach. And now up until that point, Karate Victoria never had any female coaches at all on its state team. And, you know, we're 300, we're kind of 50% female in terms of athletes now. And I thought that was really huge. And I thought, well, yeah, I'd love this. And I think it's really important. I never had a female coach growing up. So it was myself and 2 other girls. So we were kind of the first 3 female coaches on the state team ever, which was huge. And then in 2015, I got onto the board of Karate Victoria. So before that, you know, I continued competing and coaching. My main focus was on the younger kids. Competing, well, being an athlete and competing and training with the older ones, you know, it's kind of nicer to be able to coach the younger ones.
It's a lot more fun.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Look, I think the kids that we work with at Karate Victoria, they're just amazing. I just find them amazing. They're just so dedicated, and yeah, they're just amazing. They're just so committed and driven, and want to do their best. So, you know, coaching's, as you would know, it's just so satisfying. Yeah, and I continued competing in 2012. So yeah, I missed out on 2018 World Champs. I missed out on 2010 World Champs because you know, they alluded to the fact that I was too old and I probably wouldn't compete. So they didn't select anyone from my division. So I was distraught, and I was like, I don't want anyone to ever. I don't like people telling people what they can and can't do. I think a coach is there to mentor, to help, to get the best out of you. I didn't think that I was still not competitive.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing was, being a coach, I never want to put any limits on anybody that I'm coaching. Just because I haven't done something, whether it's because of my age or my ability or my gender or anything, doesn't mean somebody else can't do it. As a coach, I'm there to try and help somebody get to where they want to get to, or, you know, support them in that. I think that's what my role as a coach is. And being on both sides, I just didn't like where that stood, and I didn't want to give up something because somebody else told me. So I continued competing, and the head state coach at that time, and it was Bruce Hyland, he's like, you can still do this. He just stepped up in my corner, and I just had a few other people kind of step up and support me. And so then in 2012, I made the team to go to the World Champs in 2012. And I won Oceania, and I won a medal in Greece at a Series A tournament. I then qualified for World Games in 2013. So I was one of 3 Australian karate athletes that qualified. And then I won a bronze medal at those World Games.
Wow.
Now, that was 2013. That was 3 years after the fact I was told I was too old and I probably would never continue in this sport. So
you showed them.
Yeah. I really thought it was going to be a little bit more satisfying, to be honest. But, you know, it's more a personal thing. I was like, well, you know, I'm glad I stuck it through it and did it. Somebody at my age isn't too old to be doing what I'm doing. Then I was also on the board. So from 2015, which I'm a big believer that, you know, you can complain about the way things are, or you can be part of the solution. So being on the board was really what it was all about. It was basically, I just thought that I had something to offer and I could improve things. Having grown up and having in the sport and having done it for such a long time, I just thought I'd really like to help improve things. I don't like to use the word change. People are uncomfortable with change. So yeah, I got into that, and I think we've improved things a lot. There's still a long way to go. Yeah, I was doing that. I was coaching, competing, working full time as well.
Yeah.
And then I missed out again on World Champ selections. Didn't get to the World Champs in 2018. Nobody in my division again got into the World Champs team, which was kind of disappointing because, you know, we had the Olympics coming up in 2020 at that point, and those points were really critical. Going to World Champs were really critical in helping to qualify for Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at the end of 2019, I was kind of like, maybe I should. I think I'm done with competition, karate. You know, sport at that level is, and being in not a very well-funded sport, it's not, you know, one of those big 5 sports that you know, people make money from in Australia. I just thought, I think I'm done with spending all my money on my sport. But then I had some other friends on the team who were older athletes as well, and they're like, but you're likely to qualify for the Olympic qualifier for Tokyo. And I was like, they're like, you can do 6 more months at that point. And I was like, you're right, I can do 6 more months. But that 6 more months, COVID came around in 2020, turned into a year and a half. But I was actually enjoying training through I mean, it was hard. You know, we couldn't train. We were in lockdown in Melbourne. it was really tough. But I was enjoying my karate again. Obviously, this year when things opened up again, our qualifiers kind of, obviously the Olympics got delayed until 2021, and I was feeling really good. And I just thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a go. And yeah, so a few weeks ago, me and 6 other teammates went off to Paris to give ourselves a shot at making one of the spots for the Olympics. Unfortunately, all but one missed out. It's very tough. Olympics is very tough, and qualifying for the Olympics is very tough. It's not, you know, the best in every country in each division gets to go. Only 10 athletes in the world qualified for a division at the Olympics.
Wow.
So lots and lots of, you know, world-class athletes missed out. It was disappointing, but also it was an amazing experience, and one that I'm proud that I kind of stuck around and did.
Yes, definitely. And you think of like that moment where you battled with that coach and that hard experience for 10 years. Like, did you think that you'd be sitting here now doing, you know, what you've done?
No. Look, I don't wish that kind of treatment upon anybody. I don't think anyone should be treated or go through anything like that. But I think, you know, that experience is what kind of sort of made me persist. I guess it made me resilient. I don't know. And I think my parents have got a lot to do with it as well. It's, you know, they always pushed me to do better, be better, to never give up. And I think sport also kind of teaches you that as well. Yeah, I think that experience, it's that whole thing, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It didn't kill me, so it just, yeah, it kind of pushed me to, I'm a big believer of you know, you should treat people the way you like to be treated. And I think if I accepted that in my life and I accepted that behavior, then that says something about me, and that didn't sit well with me. So I guess I kept going because I think that sort of behavior was unacceptable, and I just wanted to face that and do something about it, I suppose.
And I like that you have done it in the sense of like, yes, you kept competing, but also that you started to coach, and then you coached kids the way you wanted to be coached, or the way that, you know, you believed that they deserved to be treated, which was, you know, with a bit more respect than you might have experienced. And then you have gone another step further, and now you're on the board making active changes towards the whole sport in general, especially in Victoria. So that's amazing.
Yeah, and you know, I think our sport has also lacked diversity, and I think that's all sports, to be fair and honest. And I guess that's a very historical, you know, depending on where the sport comes from and how it was taught. And I think tradition is a hard thing when something's taught a certain way, or you know, something is a certain way. It's like, well, why are you going to change it? It's not about change. It's just like, well, just because something was done a certain way decades ago does not make it right. So a lot of females are doing sport these days, and I don't think it's good for females not to be represented, you know, whether it's playing a sport or running a sport or coaching a sport. You know, there are things I could never talk to a coach about getting my period. And I was never made to feel comfortable about it. And when I did, or if I did say something, it was kind of like, oh, okay, you know, nobody knew what to do with that information. Whereas, you know, and, you know, we wear white in karate. It's a really horrible color for females. So, you know, things, I had a young girl come up to me at one of our national training camps, and, you know, she'd gotten her period and she didn't, I mean, you know, bless her. I'm really lucky that I'm glad I was there and she was comfortable enough to approach me. I was there in being an athlete myself, and she had a fight off, and my heart just kind of went out to her, and I was like, right, here, take another pair of pants. And yeah, it's just a shame that we didn't have another female there
Like a
to
coach to
understand.
help her.
Yeah. Or and that's just one little thing. And females, we tend to be a little bit more emotional, and we like to be coached a little bit different.
Or
So
it changes depending on the week. I know that there was weeks that I could be, as a swimmer, be pushed a little bit more, and like maybe the more assertive route, and that my coach could, say, you're not going to do it if you don't do it this way, and be a bit stronger with me. And then there's weeks that if he did that, I'd crack it a little bit and throw my goggles, or my goggles would well up because I'd be crying while I was swimming. And that can change within 10 days because of the hormone levels in our bodies. Yeah.
And I feel like as a female, I'm in tune with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in a position where I can now speak to other male coaches and tell them about these things. But I couldn't do that when I was younger. I just didn't feel comfortable because that's not the environment I was brought up in. But
Yeah.
I want to normalize all these things, and I think there's a lot of great male coaches out there. They just don't know. So
What wasn't normalized when they were growing up and when they were learning those skills of coaching. So like, as females, like, this is now our time to change that and to normalize it. And then any young male going through it, going through those processes of coaching now, well, it's going to be easier for them to have those conversations with their female athletes because it's becoming more normal.
Yeah, that's right. And I just think, sometimes you just feel more comfortable being coached by a female or being coached by a male. Like, there needs to be more females present, especially since we're trying to encourage more girls to participate in sports. We're trying to encourage more females to be in certain positions, whether it's on boards. And just like, a lot of men have the belief that, a female can't coach a senior men's team. I don't believe that,
Mm-hmm.
but they feel that they can coach a senior women's team. I have issues with that. So
yeah. I think we're doing a lot of work now to break that stigma. It's probably been the last 10, 20 years, more so the last 10. And you can see things starting to change, and it makes me really excited for the next 10 years. But yeah, I can definitely like relate to having maybe male coaches. And it was really early on when I said I wanted to be a coach, but I had a older male, he was in his like 60s or 70s at the time, saying I couldn't coach because I was a female and I was a young female. And this is swimming that has pretty equal representation in terms of its athletes. But I was told I couldn't coach because I was a female and a young female. And I always got stuck, like when we did those little race night things, so like little mini competitions, I got stuck taking the money at the entrance. I was kind of like the door girl, and I was never allowed to marshal, and I was never allowed to, do the starting gun or any of that stuff. And I remember having to go down generations until I found a male that said, okay, yeah, you can do this.
Yeah, it's a real problem in sports. Maybe it's a real problem in all sorts of different areas. Yeah, I think there's ageism, there's a gender bias. Yeah, there's lots of little things that have been highlighted to me through sport that have made me want to be in positions where I can maybe help change perceptions.
And it's not to say that all people are like that are gender bias or age bias or anything like that, because you've had wonderful male in Bruce who gave you that chance and was like, no, you know what, you can do it. And there's been amazing males role models in my career, in my sporting journey, that have gone, yes, Fiona, like, you can do that. And they empower you and tell you, maybe don't follow with tradition.
Yeah. And I think it's really important. Like, for every bad person, there are like 10 really good people.
Yeah.
And I think if you kind of do things for, with kindness and empathy, that's the kind of support network you're going to build around you. And I think those people will then help sort of make you stronger and build you up. And help you on your journey and get what you want to get done.
Yeah.
And I think if you're always aiming to sort of help and improve things, I think, you know, in the end, people want things to improve. It's just some people just don't know that it can be done, or that it can be done differently to what they've done it before. So I think, but it takes a lot of persistence and breaking down a lot of barriers. You got to have a lot of patience and just I guess, I don't know, a lot of will.
Yeah. Well, the passion behind it has to be, you know, not just fleeting. It's got to be really strong, and that you're going to fight battles metaphorically, but you're going to, you know, fight these battles and come up against hurdles, and you've just got to push past them. Yeah.
And I think, you know, sport teaches you all those skills. I don't think you realise what you pick up as you go through it.
Mm-hmm.
I think we were talking about this. I think that's the thing with elite sport. Elite sport, I think, is kind of a selfish thing, but you going through it, I think, at the coming out the other end, that's when you kind of stop and think about, you know, your journey, what you've been through, how you got through it, and how you can then pass on your lessons.
Oh, I like that.
Well, yeah, I think, you know, I mean, elite sport has its good and its bad. These extraordinary people trying to achieve these extraordinary things. It's so tough. As I think Tora Bright won a silver medal at, I don't know whether it was World Champs or Olympics or something, and she's like, it's athletic warfare out there. You know, it's really tough. You've got, you know, and when you're in that world, you just think it's the be all and end all. And if you don't reach that gold medal or whatever it is, or standing on that podium, it's like, well, you know, look how many people are so good and you just can't reach that, or what. It's just, but it's a tiny little bleep in the world. It's just a tiny little world that you're a part of. When you come out, and, you know, and it's all about me, because it's like, you know,
all results.
Yeah. And, you know, for a lot of people to get those results, they've got to be like that.
100%.
I've never liked that. I wished going through at that level that I was a bit more like that. I'm very conscious that I don't I care. Sometimes I feel I care, not that there's a care too much. You can never care too much, but I kind of, you know, was very conscious of the people around me, and I never wanted to be that selfish person. And I thought, you know, I'm going to try and be the best at this sport without having to be that selfish athlete.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe that's why I never made the gold medal at World Champs. But I think elite sport teaches you these certain skills that if you come out on the other end, you can then pass on to the next generation. And not everyone has to be an elite sports person to get the benefits of sport. You know, some people are really content with just doing the sport, learning new skills, and just getting the best out of themselves. And that's really nice. That's what I love being a coach. I love seeing kids, you know, come in, they can't really do something, but they're really determined and they really want to do it. You know, you giving them one or two words or some advice, or trying to help them or mentor them, you know, and then you see them a year, or with young kids, it's like, it feels like it happens instantly. It's 6 months to a year and they've just dramatically improved and they're amazing. Yeah, but, you know, and then, you know, you see them 5 years later and they're doing so well, and you've taught them skills and lessons that, you know, maybe they're not continuing in that particular sport, but I think there's kind of skills that they can take into every part of their life and help them navigate through life. So
Thank you for listening to this episode of Beyond Sport with Fiona Stewart. This is a completely independent podcast that has been created to share the journey and lessons of top-level sporting professionals, but also your everyday lover of sport. If you liked this podcast, I'd really appreciate if you could leave a review and share it with someone who you think would also enjoy it. Until next time.